Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We thought with back to school and many of us back to the office at this point in time that it would be a good time to offer kind of an ATP 101 session to everyone to introduce ourselves, let you know who we are, what we have to offer, and hopefully how we can help you be successful in writing behavioral healthcare business. I'm Krista Mays, the director of the ATP program, and I'll be presenting today along with underwriters Jim Kilgallen and Joe Devlin that you should all see on the screen. Just a few housekeeping items. Scott Hemmons from our marketing department, our fantastic marketing department, is kind of the wizard behind the curtain, directing the slides and taking care of things technical for us. And if you wouldn't mind keeping yourself muted throughout the presentation, we would appreciate that just for the sake of time. And we'll have plenty of questions at the end. You'll be able to unmute yourself and just kind of chime in and ask any questions that have come up as we go along. We also, fun stuff, have I think most everyone's mailing addresses to send our gift pack. Everyone on the call will be receiving the back to school gift pack. You should have received an email from marketing to complete a mailing address form. They'll be sending a follow-up out to anyone that they still need their addresses for. So again, thank you for joining us. So to give you an idea of today's agenda, we'll give an NSM overview just of NSM as a company, and then some background, some history about the ATP program specifically, along with our appetite and what we have to offer. Wouldn't be back to school without a pop quiz, so we'll do a kind of a fun interactive pop quiz, share some recent success stories with you, and then wrap things up and hopefully be able to address any questions that you have. So about NSM, NSM Insurance Group is a program administrator. We're the leader in marketing, developing, distributing, and underwriting and servicing industry-specific niche programs. And ATP is just one program within the NSM family. We, at this point, after 30 years of being in existence, write about $1 billion in premium, a little over 25 B2B and B2C insurance programs across the United States and the UK as well. And then the next slide will give you kind of a snapshot of these are not all of our brands, but they're some of our main key brands. As you can see, we underwrite several verticals in addition to the behavioral healthcare market: social services, transportation, collector car, habitational, pet insurance, staffing lines for temporary and permanent staffing companies, workers' comp. So, you know, if you have a need for a unique vertical, we probably have a program for it. And I know personally just enough to be dangerous on all of these. So if you would like more information on any of the other programs that NSM writes, feel free to visit the website down at the bottom, nsminc.com. You can certainly reach out to me or Jim or Joe, and we can get you to the right person. So into why we're here. So the Addiction Treatment Providers Program, we are the leading insurance program for the behavioral health market. We've been in existence for 16 years with a kind of a special focus on the addiction treatment community. We're all things behavioral health, but our genesis was really within the addiction treatment market. And we wrote our first policy back in 2005. And we developed this program because the executive director of NATAP, which is the National Association of Addiction Treatment Providers, contacted our founder and CEO, Jeff McKernan, and let him know that his members, the addiction treatment facilities that were his membership, were able to find coverage in different places, but there was no one-stop shop for them to provide a package policy, their professional liability, and all the coverage enhancements that this particular niche requires. So, while we wrote our first policy in 2005, the development of the program really began probably in 2002 or 2003 to really bring something robust and really useful to the market. So, we were motivated by that gap in the marketplace, and we have been committed ever since to serving the behavioral health market. We've seen a lot of competitors come and go, and what we try to do is just remain consistent and steady for our trusted agents, the industry in general. We work with both for-profit and not-for-profit facilities, and we are constantly looking to evolve and grow and improve our program through disciplined underwriting, which is really our foundation, always building products and services, enhancing our coverages based on the feedback of industry leaders that we're involved with, as well as our partnership agents. Go to the next slide, Scott. And this is our fantastic underwriting team. I am very proud of every single one of them. We are definitely experts in this industry. That's kind of the NSM formula. Each NSM program has its own team of underwriters that really just focus on their niche sector of business. So all of the underwriters that you see here have been working within this program really for a minimum of 5 years. And some of our underwriters have a much longer tenure. So we've been involved, with this industry for quite some time. And you also have direct access to all of these folks. So, that's one of the other things that I think, kind of sets us apart. You had the ability to, contact Jim and Joe directly at, any point in time to just discuss an account with them, talk about the business that you've submitted directly. So they're the ones that are making the decisions and negotiating those accounts with you. So just to give you a little, we have a couple of slides that go into sort of that direct marketplace and provide a market outlook. We've been involved with and informed by industry leaders for many years. We've had relationships with this gentleman, Mark Perino. He's the president of ATOD, which is the American Association for the Treatment of Opioid Dependence, one of the premier organizations that really fight for and lobby for the opioid treatment providers, which is obviously a growth industry. Mark and his team and the membership of his association are really valuable resources for us, and it's pretty symbiotic. We provide insurance and risk management consulting to them, and they help us keep our ear to the ground and a pulse on what's happening within our sector. It just makes us better underwriters. We kind of find out from the horse's mouth what the exposures are, how things are changing, and we can pivot and change along with what we learn from them. So, and on the flip side, we also have the opportunity to get to know and build relationships with some of our long-term direct insureds. Doug Tiemann is another really valuable resource for us. He's dedicated his 30+ year career to the addiction treatment community. He's somebody that we've been in really close contact with all throughout the pandemic to find out what he and a lot of his counterparts felt the pandemic, frankly, was going to do to, and what kind of impact it would have on this industry. And prior to, they were already projecting a pretty big need as this industry was poised to grow. And with the pandemic, they're now projecting, obviously, kind of what he terms as a tsunami of need. So as producers and agents, our message here is really behavioral health, addiction treatment, mental health. They're all definitely on the upswing in terms of growth potential and business potential. We have sources that are projecting about 30% over the next 5 to 7 years. And the pandemic itself really kind of brought into light some pivotal developments that are helping with growth and helping this sector really kind of pivot and serve the community, which are regulatory changes in telehealth. There's more access to telehealth. The providers are being reimbursed at a higher rate, a rate that's more in line with in-person treatment, which is really good for our treatment providers. It really helps them to stay relevant and in business. And then obviously there's some private equity firms and money that are looking towards, making investments within this sector. And it wouldn't be back to school, right, without a pop quiz. So Scott, our wizard, is going to go into a couple of questions, and I think what you'll be able to do is just from your PC, go ahead and select the answers that you think are correct. So our first question is obviously, what positive regulatory change has been realized as a result of COVID-19? First is reduced waiting period for new provider licensure, easily accessible telehealth and higher reimbursement, unlimited take-home medication privileges for folks undergoing opioid treatment addiction, or none of the above. And you can all go ahead and select the answer that you think is correct. Okay, so excellent. So 89% of you chose the correct answer, which is easily accessible telehealth and higher reimbursement for those services. And the next question, which of the following is a medication used in the treatment of opioid dependence? And this is not something that we've covered already, but the answers are Suboxone, hydrochloroquine, Adderall, or both A and C. There it is. Great. Good. And again, most of you chose the correct answer, which is Suboxone. And methadone is another obviously prevalent medication for the treatment of opioid dependence. There's the terminology is really opioid treatment provider, OTPs. That's what the industry prefers to be referred to. Methadone clinics are really kind of what, in layman's terms, how they're referenced. And the final question, there's some controversy within the addiction treatment community. Which of the following are topics frequently discussed and debated? And the possible answers are treatment versus recovery, abstinence versus medication-assisted treatment, or the methadone clinics, or alcohol addiction versus opioid addiction, or both A and B. You guys are all on top of things. Most everyone selected the correct answer, which is both A and B. And this question and the answers kind of, they give a little entree to illustrate the kind of the example of how this industry is very multifaceted. There's a lot of moving parts. The business that we see and that you see as agents and that you're pursuing and prospecting for is not cookie cutter. There's no one particular treatment provider or facility that looks exactly like the other. They all have different philosophies and treatment modalities, and there's definitely a couple of different camps within this sector: treatment versus recovery or sober living homes, and then those facilities that really subscribe to the abstinence-based treatment versus the folks that take a more medical approach and really kind of champion the medication-assisted treatment. Okay. All right, so we're going to kind of get into the nuts and bolts of things now, and I'll turn it over to the real experts, Jim and Joe, and Jim is going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about ATP's appetite.
Thank you, Krista, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks again for joining us today. So, now that we've gone through and gotten a broad intro to NSM, behavioral health in general, and ACE quiz, we can move into the appetite here, which is the crux of what we do here on ATP. We have the ability to write we have a pretty broad appetite in terms of eligible classes, where some markets you may be seeing are pulling back on eligible classes and maybe on some coverage offerings that they're including within their programs, but we're still actively targeting addiction treatment facilities, which that would include your residential or inpatient providers. Then we include also outpatient providers, which within that you could see partial hospitalization programs, intensive outpatient programs, or your traditional outpatient programs. As Krista touched on earlier, the opioid treatment providers, or OTPs, or the medically assisted treatment clinics or methadone clinics, those are a segment that we're still actively targeting. And then we also have some outpatient mental health providers as well. And last but not least, within the whole behavioral health space, the segment, sober living homes or recovery residences, as they're commonly referred to. That's more your aftercare, home-like environment where people are kind of stepping down from a more formal inpatient or outpatient treatment program. We write a number of faith-based treatment programs throughout the program, and then we also include some higher risk treatment programs such as eating disorders, and then we can also include some addiction treatment that's outside of the traditional drug and alcohol, such as gambling addiction. Now we can move on into the next slide, which highlights our coverage offerings. So you'll see here we're a full package program. Most of our lines of business have enhanced coverages within there that are tailored to a behavioral health care provider. Some highlights of that include we have a sexual and physical abuse liability limit built within the general liability coverage part. We also include blanket additional insured wording within the GL to satisfy folks that insureds may be contracting with. Also within the professional liability, we offer the ability to schedule the primary coverage for employed and contracted physicians and psychiatrists within the professional. We include within the base form vicarious liability for the named insured for the medical services rendered on their behalf by any employed and contracted professionals. And then moving on, and also I forgot to touch on the last slide we also have an umbrella. We can write up to 5 million limits within the program on our umbrella, which would typically include your general liability, professional liability, abuse, and auto within that schedule of underlying coverages. We can also include employer's liability from outside A-rated carriers within that underlying as well on the umbrella. So shifting now into this next slide, we have a number of ancillary coverages that we don't have the pen for these, so we don't underwrite them in-house, but we kind of do a wholesale play with those just to make the experience as much of a one-stop shop as possible, because we understand the insureds have a need for these as well. One of those includes the participant and volunteer accident policy, which is through Crum & Forster. We can also facilitate workers' comp through NSM's separate all comp solutions program. And then we also provide a cyber product, which we partnered with CFC, which is a Lloyd's of London syndicate. And then we're also in the beginning stages of launching a cyber product that's built into our general liability form. It would be a $100,000 sublimit within the GL line of coverage. However, understanding that a lot of providers, especially when you get into the larger multifaceted ones, they have a higher need on limits and coverage. We still are going to continue offering the CFC product as well to meet their needs. And just kind of going more down the line too is how we try to make it a more efficient experience for all of our agents and insureds throughout. Is one of the most important thing I would say is the claims handling, because at the end of the day, that's why your insureds are buying insurance. So NSM, we really strive to provide an effective and efficient experience when it comes to claims handling. We have our own in-house claims team that's run by David Gagliardi. He's a former insurance defense counsel, and he was also a plaintiff's counsel, so he's seen it from both sides, which is great to have. Dave and his team, they manage and monitor the claims in conjunction with Athens Administrators, who is our third-party administrator. Our primary goal is always to make sure that claims are handled timely and properly, and that we're being a true resource to our agents and insureds. In addition, Dave's team also works very closely with us on the underwriting side in doing regular claim reviews. They're also keeping us abreast of any emerging trends in the claims world, and sharing any and all good information that we can then share with our agent partners. And while we rely on Dave's team very heavily to give us the full complete picture of the claim, and also Athens as well, we also on the underwriting side have access, real-time access to the claims adjuster's files. So it really, if an agent comes to us, in a bind, they're needing some information, be it just an adjuster's contact information or even just some details of where a claim stands, we can easily pop into the file, see what's going on, and get them a quick answer. While it would be wonderful that claims didn't occur, we understand that's the true reason why they're buying our product. So we just want to make sure that it's a smooth experience from the outset on both the agency side and then also ultimately with the insureds. While we're on the topic of claims, I'll take this as an opportunity to shift over to Joe. He's going to go through some of our recent new business successes.
All right, thanks, Jim. Good afternoon, everybody. Like Jim said, I'm going to go through a couple of examples to help illustrate exactly what we bring to the table. It's easy for us to get on here and say what we can offer, what we can provide, but it's nice to be able to show some examples. This submission originally came to us as a one-location outpatient facility in North Carolina. The submission came in from an agent that I work with very frequently and advised that we did have some competition on the account. I quoted right around $10,000, whereas the competition was in the $7,000 to $8,000 range. I was able to propose our terms, and the agent was comfortable with the difference in pricing. Not only did this agent in particular know our product, but more importantly, they knew the competitor's product and was able to do a policy comparison just based off the quotes. On this slide, we actually do have a couple of examples of where we really were able to stand out. So most notably is on the PL. I really do believe that that's where we stand out in the industry. The first thing the insured liked was that we were able to schedule physicians and psychiatrists. Not every carrier is willing to do it, but even more importantly, Jim touched on this a bit earlier, is that our vicarious liability language does not differentiate between contracted and employed physicians. A lot of carriers' product, their vicarious liability only applies to employed physician as opposed to contracted. And that was key with this insured because part of their growth plan was to employ a lot of contracted physicians to work at their facilities. So at that point, knowing our product, it was a no-brainer for them to pay the couple extra bucks. And because of the groundwork laid up front by our agent regarding our product and his and our both expertise, we were able to secure all the accounts related to this insured, and what started out as a small $10,000 account is now grown over $150K in premium and continues to grow across multiple states. So we'll go to the next one. All right, so this next example involves a for-profit outpatient facility who also offered sober living accommodations for those in the treatment program. This insured traditionally was an abstinence-based program. They essentially were just doing low-level counseling for their clients. As Krista touched on earlier, the industry is constantly evolving. This insured in particular was in tune with that and saw an increasing need for medication-assisted treatment. They went through all the proper channels and were able to get the license to begin offering those services. And naturally, as a result of that, they notified their carrier and were not renewed as MAT services, didn't really fit their appetite. So their agent at the time really had a hard time replacing coverages. They could get carriers to quote the treatment center, but not the sober living, and vice versa. But it was really important for the insured just to have everything on one policy. As time went on, the insured kind of lost confidence in their current agent that they were going to be able to get it done. So they were referred to a new agent who worked closely with our program for years and knew that this would be a fit for us. We were able to quote and bind both the treatment center and sober living homes all into one policy, which is exactly what the insured wanted. On top of that, the CEO of the organization happened to own the 2 buildings that the sober living home was operating out of. He was leasing them back to there. So completely unrelated to the operator's non-renewal. His personal policy was also being non-renewed for operating commercial business from there. So we were also able to get him quoted on a lesser's risk policy. So he was protected not only as the CEO on the operator's policy, but him personally on this lesser's risk policy. So in this case, we really were just like a one-stop shop for all this insured's needs. So now I'll turn it back over to Krista, who can tell you more info about our program. I think you're muted, Krista.
Yep, thank you. So this is an agent spotlight. We just like to share this with you and share some of the thoughts of our agents. We have some, really fantastic agents that specialize within this sector of business, and we wouldn't be here without them. I think a couple of them might be on the call. I'm not sure, but Jack Wallace is actually one of our biggest fans, which we appreciate. He was for years the head of the behavioral health practice of Willis of Tennessee. They have a pretty heavy concentration in the behavioral health care sector. He just recently branched off after many years, I won't tell you how many years at Willis, to start his own agency. But we really appreciate the trust that Jack and the whole team at Willis instills in us, to give us the opportunity to work with them and entrust, their insured's business to us. So tutorials and, testimonials from him really mean the world to us. And I will leave you with a couple of final thoughts, and just the things that we would like for you to take away is that we're consistent, not cookie cutter, sort of like the industry itself. This industry is not cookie cutter by any stretch. And I think we found success by being a consistent provider, a consistent partner for our agents, being involved, with those premier organizations like ATOT and NATAP and NAR, which is the Recovery Residents Association. And our pillars to success that have been consistent throughout our last 16 years are really that concentration on industry expertise, a designated underwriting team. As I said before, you have access to those underwriters, and they are truly experts in the underwriting of this class. Our commitment to service standards, because at the end of the day, we're here to make your life easy, set you up for success, help you write business and maintain that business. And you can't do that if we're not pulling our weight and kind of delivering our end of that bargain and managing the accounts. And we're always looking to enhance our risk management, loss control services. And as Jim and Joe both highlighted, as you can tell, claims handling has kind of been a theme throughout this presentation. We're very in tune with the fact that it's incredibly important. It's one of those things that do make your life easier as an agent when a claim occurs if we do our job well. And NSM, Jeff McCarnan, as I mentioned, is our founder and CEO. He started NSM as an independent agency. So everything that we do at NSM, all of the programs are really developed and managed with our independent agents in mind and what's important to them. So, and we're always open to hearing what is important to our agents, and so that we can just grow and evolve and become better. So at the end of the day, you are really our clients and you matter to us. I just want to give everyone a chance, if you wanted to do a screenshot or take a photo of our contact information. We are more than happy to address any questions offline, or if you have specific business that you would like to talk to us about, please feel free to reach out to any one of us. Okay. And with that being said, thank you so much again for your time, and everyone enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.